The night was quiet, but the road was not safe. Cold winds moved between the empty houses, and street lamps flickered as if they were about to die. Daniel walked home with his hands deep in his jacket pockets, trying to avoid the chill. He had worked late again, and the streets were nearly empty, just the sound of his own shoes on the cracked pavement. But then he saw her. At first he thought it was only a shadow standing under the broken light near the crossroad. Her figure was thin, her long hair messy, and her clothes torn as if she had been running for days. She looked lost, almost fragile. But when Daniel came closer, his heart skipped. Her skin was glowing faint blue, shining faintly under the weak lamp. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, clear and bright, like liquid silver. He froze. His first thought was that this must be some kind of trick, maybe makeup, maybe a prank. But the way she held her arms around her body, the way she shook, with cold it felt too real. She turned her head slowly, and when her eyes met his, Daniel felt a strange pull. She didn't look like a monster. She looked scared. "Please." Her voice was weak, soft, but the word was clear. Not a cry for help, not anger, just fear. Daniel looked around. No one else was nearby. Only the sound of the wind and the distant bark of a dog. His heart raced. He knew he should run. He knew this was dangerous, but his feet did not move away. Instead, he stepped closer. "Are you okay?" he asked carefully. She shook her head. Lost, alone. Her words were broken as if she didn't know his language well. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Whoever she wasn't safe here. A girl like this, glowing blue, couldn't survive a night outside without someone noticing. And if someone noticed, the wrong kind of people would come. He pulled off his jacket and placed it over her shoulders. She flinched at first, but then slowly allowed him to cover her. Her body was ice cold. "Come with me," Daniel whispered. "It's not safe here." For a moment she hesitated. Then she nodded slowly. They walked together down the empty road. Her steps were unsteady, and Daniel had to slow down for her. He glanced at her again and again, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Her skin shimmered as if light lived under it. Her hair, though dirty and tangled, looked almost silver. Under the moonlight, "Who are you?" he finally asked. She looked at him, her lips trembling. "Name, Lyra." Daniel swallowed. It was a beautiful name, but it did not belong to any place he knew. He wanted to ask more, but she seemed too weak to answer. They reached his small apartment building. He unlocked the door and let her in quickly before anyone could see. The moment she stepped inside, she looked around like a trapped animal ready to run. "It's okay," Daniel said softly. "You're safe here." She sat down slowly on the edge of his old couch. Daniel fetched a blanket and wrapped it around her. She clutched it tightly, her silver eyes following his every move. For a while, silence filled the room. Only the faint hum of the old fridge in the kitchen broke it. Daniel made her a cup of hot tea, though he wasn't sure if she could drink it. She accepted it with shaking hands, sipping carefully. The steam fogged her face for a moment, and Daniel thought she looked almost human again. Just a tired girl, in need of rest. But then he noticed something, a mark on her wrist. It wasn't a tattoo. It was glowing faintly, the same blue light as her skin. Strange symbols moved like living lines across it, shifting and changing. Daniel frowned. "What is that?" Lyra quickly pulled her sleeve down, hiding it. Her eyes darted to the door as if she feared someone had seen. "Family," she whispered. "They find me." The way she said it made Daniel's stomach tighten. Family? What kind of family left their daughter wandering the streets of a human city? Or was it something worse? "Are they looking for you?" Daniel asked carefully. Her hands trembled. "Yes." "Must not go back." Her words hit him hard. She wasn't just lost. She was running. From her own people. From her own family. Before Daniel could ask more, a sudden sound echoed outside. Heavy steps, too heavy for just one person. Lyra froze, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She dropped the cup and it shattered on the floor, spilling hot tea across the carpet. "They come," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel rushed to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to look. A shadow moved across the street, tall and sharp, not shaped like any normal human. His breath caught. Whoever she was running from, they had found her. Daniel pulled the curtain back quickly and stepped away from the window, his heart pounding like a drum inside his chest. He didn't know who was out there, but the way Lyra's eyes widened told him enough. They weren't friendly. She pressed her back against the couch, clutching the blanket like it could hide her glowing skin. Her lips trembled, and for the first time Daniel noticed how truly fragile she looked. She wasn't just different, she was afraid, broken, and exhausted. "Who's out there?" he whispered, though he already knew she understood. Her voice was soft but sharp. "Hunters." The word hit him like a blade. He didn't ask more. He didn't want to imagine what kind of hunters tracked glowing alien girls in the middle of the night. Daniel quickly switched off the lights, leaving the room in darkness. He motioned for her to stay quiet and crouched beside the window again. Shadows moved outside, tall and strange, as if they didn't belong to the world he knew. They walked slowly, scanning, searching. One of them stopped near the lamppost, and for a moment Daniel saw the reflection of silver armor under the flickering light. His throat tightened. This was no ordinary search. Whoever they were, they carried power. Lyra grabbed his sleeve suddenly, her cold fingers gripping tight. "Please, help." Daniel looked at her, his mind racing. He had already crossed the line when he brought her inside. Now there was no going back. "Stay here," he whispered. "Don't make a sound." He waited by the door, listening, until the heavy steps faded into the distance. The silence returned, but it wasn't comforting. It was the silence of danger waiting to return. Lyra's grip loosened. She buried her face in the blanket, shaking. Daniel sat back down beside her, his hands running through his hair as he tried to calm himself. "You have to tell me the truth," he said finally. "Who are you really?" Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes glistening. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she lifted her wrist and pushed her sleeve back. Sleeve. The glowing mark shone again, symbols shifting like living fire. "This is family seal," she whispered. "Clan of Orin. Strong. Old. Powerful." Daniel frowned. Clan of Orin. The name meant nothing to him, but the weight in her voice told him it was something big. "They rule," she continued slowly, struggling with words. "Not only homeworld, many systems, many stars." Her voice broke and she lowered her head. "I run away." Daniel blinked. He could hardly believe it. "You ran away from them? From your own people?" Lyra's hands tightened into fists. "They choose, not me, bond me, force me, no choice." Her broken words painted a picture he wished wasn't true. She hadn't just wandered into his world by mistake. She had escaped. Escaped something heavy, something cruel. "You mean marriage?" Daniel asked carefully. She nodded slowly. "Not husband, not love, just power. For clan." Daniel leaned back, the weight of her confession sinking into him. He thought about his quiet, ordinary life, the way he worked long hours and came home to a small, empty apartment. And now here he was, sitting beside a runaway alien girl whose powerful family wanted to bind her to someone she didn't choose. "Why come here?" he asked finally. Lyra lifted her eyes, meeting his. "Because humans are free." Her words stopped him cold. Free. She had crossed stars, escaped hunters, left behind a powerful clan, because she believed humans were different. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He didn't know why, but her words lit something inside him. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was both. Before he could reply, a sudden knock shook the door. 3 heavy strikes, each one louder than the last. Lyra froze. Her eyes widened with terror, and she shook her head quickly. "No, no," she whispered. Daniel pressed a finger to his lips, signaling silence. He moved toward the door slowly, his breath caught in his throat. He leaned closer, listening. A deep voice spoke from the other side. "We know she is here." Daniel's blood turned cold. "You cannot hide her," the voice continued. "The law of the clan is stronger than your walls." Lyra covered her mouth with both hands, tears welling in her eyes. Daniel's pulse hammered. He didn't know how they had tracked her so quickly, but it no longer mattered. They knew she was here, and they weren't going to leave without her. He turned back to Lyra. She was trembling, shaking her head again and again, whispering through her tears, "Don't let them take me. Please, not back, never back." Daniel's jaw tightened. He wasn't brave, not in his own eyes. He was just a man who worked late hours and lived alone. But right now, none of that mattered. What mattered was the girl in front of him, terrified and begging for help. He stood tall, his fists clenched. He knew opening the door would be suicide, but letting them in would be worse. Another knock came, harder this time. "You have one chance," the voice growled. "Return her now, and we will leave you in peace." Daniel looked at Lyra again. Her silver eyes pleaded with him, glowing in the dark. And in that moment, he made his choice. He stepped closer to the door, his voice steady, though his body shook. "Stays here," he said. Silence followed. Then a slow laugh echoed from the other side, low and dangerous. "Then you have chosen her fate," the voice replied, "and your own." The sound of heavy footsteps faded, but Daniel knew this wasn't over. They hadn't left. They were only waiting. He turned back to Lyra, who was still clutching the blanket like a shield. She whispered softly, "You will be hunted now, because of me." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then let them come." And for the first time, Lyra looked at him not with fear, but with trust. Morning came, but the air outside, Daniel's small apartment, felt heavier than before. He hadn't slept. Neither had Lyra. She sat curled on the couch, eyes fixed on the door as though it might burst open any second. The faint glow of her wrist seal pulsed like a heartbeat, a reminder that whoever wanted her would never give up. Daniel paced the floor. He knew he couldn't keep her hidden forever, but what choice did he have? Sending her back meant betraying the trust she had placed in him. And yet, keeping her here meant putting himself against forces far beyond his world. Around noon, the sky darkened unnaturally. Daniel stepped to the window, his gut twisting. Above the clouds he saw it, a shape too massive to be an aircraft, too silent to be human-made. A ship. No, not just a ship. A palace in the sky, floating with impossible grace. Lyra gasped the moment she saw it. She whispered one word, barely audible. Family. The craft descended slowly, cloaked in light, until it hovered over the outskirts of the city. People below pointed, screamed, some ran. Phones came out. No one knew what it was, but Lyra did. Moments later, the knock on the door returned. Not the rough pounding of hunters this time, but a firm, controlled strike. 3 slow knocks. Daniel's skin prickled. He opened the door just a crack. Standing there was a tall figure in silver robes, his eyes the same liquid silver as Lyra's. His face was sharp, regal, but cold. Behind him stood 2 armored guards with spears of glowing light. Daniel's breath caught. This wasn't just a hunter. This was something else entirely. The robed figure spoke, his voice smooth, heavy with authority. "You have taken in one of our blood." His eyes shifted toward Lyra, who shrank back into the shadows. By our law, you have bound yourself to her. Daniel's grip on the door tightened. I didn't bind myself to anyone, he said, firmly. The figure tilted his head slightly, studying Daniel with faint amusement. You gave her shelter. You covered her in your garment. You defended her against our hunters. By Auran custom, those acts mark the bond of protection. Protection means union. Union means claim. Daniel's stomach dropped. He looked back at Lyra, whose silver eyes filled with shame. She whispered, It is true. The figure stepped forward, his tone final. You are now demanded as mate. To the daughter of our house, the clan accepts no refusal. Daniel's fists clenched. He wanted to shout, to laugh, to tell them their customs meant nothing here. But the weight of the ship above, the gleam of the guards' weapons, and Lyra's trembling frame held his tongue. Why me? He asked instead. You're powerful. You rule stars. Why force this on a stranger? The man's eyes hardened. Because you touched what was ours. And once touched, it cannot be undone. The silence stretched. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. Lyra looked at him, her lips parting as if she wanted to speak but couldn't. Finally, Daniel said, I won't be forced into anything. Not by you, not by anyone. The two guards shifted their stance, weapons humming softly, but the robed figure raised a hand, stopping them. A small smile touched his lips, though it wasn't kind. Stubborn, he said quietly. How human. He turned his gaze back to Lyra. You shamed us by running. You broke our honor. And now you hide behind this creature. His voice sharpened. Do you truly choose him? The question hit the room like a hammer. Lyra's chest rose and fell rapidly. She looked between her kin at the door and Daniel beside her. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, with a trembling voice, she whispered, Yes. The air seemed to freeze. The guards stiffened. The robed figure's expression shifted. Surprise, anger, then cold fury. Then it is done, he said at last. But understand this, human. You are not only bound to her, you are bound to us. To our enemies. To our wars. Her fate is now your fate. He stepped back, and the guards followed. The door closed softly, but the echo of his words stayed behind, like a curse. Daniel turned to Lyra. Her eyes were wet with tears, but behind the fear there was something else, relief. She had chosen. For the first time, she had chosen for herself. Daniel rubbed his forehead, trying to breathe. What did you just do? Lyra whispered, her voice breaking. I gave you my clan, and now, they will never let you go. Outside, the massive ship still floated, casting its shadow across the city. The world was no longer the same. Daniel sat down heavily, the weight of her choice pressing on him. He had taken in a lost girl, but now he realized he had taken in an entire empire's burden, and they weren't leaving, not until he accepted the price. Daniel could not eat. He could not think. The city outside roared with panic and wonder. News. Channels showed the massive ship hovering in the sky, calling it an unknown object, while crowds filled the streets pointing cameras upward. But for Daniel, it wasn't just a strange ship. It was Lyra's family. It was her clan, and they had claimed him as their own. He sat by the window, staring at the endless shadow the ship cast across the ground. It felt like a prison wall hanging in the air. No matter where he looked, it reminded him of the truth. He was trapped. Lyra sat silently on the couch. She had not spoken much since declaring her choice. She held her knees to her chest, eyes fixed on the floor. The glow of her wrist mark pulsed like a living chain, linking her fate to his. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. Why did you choose me? His voice was quiet, but firm. Lyra lifted her head slowly. Because you did not treat me like property. You gave me choice, even when you were afraid. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to feel honored, but instead, he felt crushed. Lyra, you don't understand. Your family isn't asking me. They're forcing me. I never wanted this. Her silver eyes dimmed. I know, she whispered, and that is why. They will test you. Before Daniel could ask what she meant, the door shook again. Not with a knock. This time it opened without permission. The robed figure entered, flanked by 4 guards. They moved like shadows, their armor gleaming faintly. Daniel jumped to his feet. You can't just walk in here. The man ignored him, his cold eyes fixed on Lyra. You defy us. You bring shame. But you have chosen. So now the human must prove himself. Daniel frowned. Prove what? The man's voice was steady, sharp. That he is worthy of you. That he can stand among us. If he fails, your choice is meaningless. And he will die. Lyra gasped. No, that is not fair. The robed figure's face darkened. Our law is not fair. It is eternal. If the human cannot endure the trial, then he is not a mate. He is nothing. Daniel's hands curled into fists. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't a soldier. He was just a man who worked hard, paid bills, and lived quietly. But now this clan wanted to test him like he was stepping into some ancient battlefield. What kind of trial? He asked carefully. The man smiled faintly. Survival, strength, courage. You will enter our circle. You will face what we place before you. If you win, you live, and the bond stands. If you fail. He let the silence finish the sentence. Daniel's stomach twisted. It sounded impossible. But then he looked at Lyra. She was trembling, tears rolling down her cheeks, whispering, Don't do it. Her fear cut through him, but deeper than her fear was her trust. She had chosen him not because he was strong, but because he was human, because he gave her choice when no one else did. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with resolve. I'll do it. Lyra shook her head violently. No, you will die. They don't fight fair. Daniel reached out, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. Maybe, but if I don't try, they'll take you. And I can't let that happen. The robed figure's smile widened. So the human accepts. Very well. Tomorrow at dawn you will face the trial of the clan. With that he turned and left, his guards following him like shadows. The door closed behind them, but the weight of his words lingered in the air. Lyra buried her face in her hands, shaking. You don't know what you've done. Daniel crouched in front of her, trying to meet her eyes. Then tell me, what is this trial? She looked at him, her voice trembling. It is not just a fight. It is a test of fear. They will bring beasts, fire, weapons, things you have never seen. It is made to break you, body and spirit. Many of our own fail. Humans, they will think you weak. Daniel swallowed hard. His heart pounded, but he forced a small smile. Then maybe it's time they learn what humans can do. Lyra's breath caught. She stared at him, stunned by his words. For a moment she saw something in him, something the clan had never seen in all their pride. But Daniel felt the fear. Deep down he was terrified. He didn't know if he could survive whatever trial they planned. Yet one truth burned brighter than his fear. He couldn't abandon her now. Night fell heavy and silent. Daniel lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow at dawn, his life would be placed on the line for a girl he had met only days ago. And yet, he didn't regret it. Lyra sat quietly beside him, watching, her eyes glowing softly in the dark. She whispered, almost too soft to hear. They don't understand you. But I do. You are more dangerous than they know. Because you are free. Daniel turned his head to look at her, and in her gaze he found something stronger than fear. Hope. Outside, the massive ship hummed quietly in the sky, waiting for dawn. Waiting for the impossible choice to be tested. Dawn arrived heavy with silence. The sky glowed faint orange as the massive alien ship loomed above the city, casting its shadow across the waking world. People gathered in fear and wonder, whispering, pointing, recording with their devices. None of them knew the truth, that a single human was about to stand trial before an empire. Daniel stood at the edge of the open square beneath the hovering ship. His heart pounded like thunder in his chest, but his face was steady. He wore no armor, carried no weapon, only his will. Beside him, Lyra clutched his hand tightly. Her silver eyes were filled with both terror and pride. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "If you run, they cannot bind you. Not by human law." Daniel shook his head. "But they'll take you back, and I can't let that happen." Before she could answer, a column of light descended from the ship, striking the ground with blinding brilliance. When it faded, the robed figure and his guards stood before them. The crowd gasped and stepped back, the man's cold eyes locked on Daniel. "The human has come, the trial begins." With a gesture, he summoned a circle of glowing lines around the square. The ground shook, and strange barriers rose like walls of fire, trapping Daniel inside. Lyra cried out, reaching for him, but the guards pulled her back. "No!" she screamed, tears falling. "He is not like you." Daniel turned his head and met her eyes one last time before stepping forward. "I know," he said softly. "That's the point." The first trial came without warning. From the far side of the circle, a beast emerged. Its body was massive, covered in black scales, its mouth lined with jagged teeth. It roared, shaking the ground. The crowd gasped in horror. Daniel's chest tightened, but he didn't run. Instead, he crouched low, studying it like a man facing a problem at work. No weapon, no plan, only instinct. When the beast lunged, he rolled aside, grabbing a sharp piece of broken stone from the ground. He slashed at its eye, and the monster roared in pain. The clan watched, expecting him to die. But Daniel didn't stop. He used the beast's size against it, dodging again and again, striking where it was weak. Finally, the creature stumbled into the barrier of fire, shrieking as it burned. The crowd erupted in shock. The robed figure frowned, his silver eyes narrowing. "Lucky," he muttered. The second trial came quickly. The floor beneath Daniel shifted, opening cracks filled with flames. Spears of light shot from the ground, forcing him to leap and run. Sweat poured down his face as the heat grew unbearable. He stumbled, nearly falling, but the thought of Lyra's pleading eyes drove him on. Gritting his teeth, he jumped from stone to stone, landing with burned hands and aching legs until he reached the other side. The guards exchanged uneasy looks. This human should have been broken already, but he was still standing. The final trial was not a beast or fire. It was choice. From the circle's edge, Lyra was dragged forward, her hands bound in glowing chains. She struggled, screaming his name. The robed figure's voice thundered across the square. "Human, here is the last test. If you walk away now, we release you. You will live. But she returns to us. Forever." Daniel froze. His body shook, his lungs burned, and every instinct screamed for rest. He could walk away, end this madness, and return to his old life. But then he looked at Lyra, tears on her face, her silver eyes begging, not for freedom, but for choice. His voice came out steady, louder than the guards expected. "No, she stays with me." The robed figure's expression hardened. "Then you have chosen death." Daniel stepped forward, raising his fists. "No, I've chosen to be human, and that means I don't back down." The silence that followed was heavy. Even the guards hesitated, unsure. For the first time, the clan saw not weakness in him, but something else. Defiance born not of pride, but of freedom. Lyra's chains flickered, then shattered with a burst of light. The seal on her wrist glowed brighter than ever, pulsing with her choice. She ran to Daniel's side, standing with him. The robed figure's face twisted in anger, but the clan behind him murmured. Some whispered in awe, others in doubt. A human had survived their trial. Worse, he had refused their law and yet stood unbroken. Lyra lifted her voice, trembling but strong. "I choose him, not because of your rules, but because he gave me freedom. That is stronger than your power." The murmurs grew louder. The robed figure tried to silence them, but the tide had shifted. For the first time, the great clan of Orin faced something they could not control, a choice freely made. Finally, the man's cold eyes met Daniel's. He saw no weakness there, only unshaken resolve. Slowly, his expression changed, anger fading into reluctant respect. "You have survived," he said at last. "You have won her choice. Then so be it. The clan accepts." The barriers of fire vanished, and the square fell silent. The ship above hummed once more, then slowly began to rise higher into the sky. The crowd of humans below cheered, though most still didn't understand what they had just witnessed. Lyra turned to Daniel, her eyes shining with tears of relief. She whispered, "You are not only my mate now. You are the human who defied a clan." Daniel let out a long breath, exhaustion washing over him. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't chosen. He was just a man who refused to bend. And in the eyes of an alien empire, that was enough to change everything.